There was a time when batteries weren't included because there were no batteries. If you remember that, this video is yours. And yet, somehow, we survived childhood. Once upon a time, fun didn't need Wi-Fi. It needed imagination and maybe a few missing fingertips from a wind-up toy. Before tablets, we had tin soldiers that chipped paint and probably gave you tetanus if you looked at them wrong. Before multiplayer online gaming, we had siblings, the original enemies to allies story arc, complete with plot twists, betrayals, and grudges that lasted until dinner. You didn't download fun. You built it, broke it, and maybe, glued it back together with whatever wasn't already stuck to your fingers. It's funny, isn't it? We spent hours, actual hours, making a wooden block tower as high as we could reach, and just as long crying when someone's elbow accidentally turned it into rubble. But here's what nobody tells you about those old toys. They were magic, not because they did anything special, but because they made us do something special. They made us imagine. And that was the real toy. No instructions, no manuals, no safety warnings printed in 17 languages. You made the rules. A stick could be anything. A sword for fighting dragons, a magic wand for casting spells, a fishing pole by the creek, a baton for conducting an invisible orchestra, or your little brother's worst nightmare when you were playing knights and he refused to be the dragon. You remember this. You can still feel the weight of that stick in your hand. Dolls had one facial expression, usually some variation of pleasant surprise. But somehow, kids gave them entire life stories, marriages, careers, scandals, dramatic fallouts, and tearful reconciliations, all before dinner. Wooden trains didn't have sound effects, so we made them. They didn't have working lights, so we imagined them. They didn't do anything on their own, which meant we had to do everything. We didn't realize it then, but those simple toys built something priceless. Creativity, patience, problem solving, the ability to have fun without electricity, without instructions, without anyone telling us what to imagine. And if a toy broke, and they always broke eventually, you didn't replace it. You taped it, you sewed it, you prayed over it like a field surgeon with a wounded soldier, and then you called it a limited edition and loved it even more for its scars. And then everything changed. The first time you saw a wind-up tin robot walk across the floor, it was pure magic, until it pinched your finger in its gears. Then it was science. Painful, fascinating science. These weren't just toys anymore. They were machines. They had gears and springs and mysterious inner workings that you definitely weren't supposed to take apart. But of course you did anyway. Yo-yos became social currency. If you could walk the dog or rock the baby, you basically ruled recess. Every school had that one kid. If you don't remember who it was you. If you could do around the world without hitting yourself in the face, you were a legend. And if you somehow managed to untangle a yo-yo string that had turned into what scientists call a quantum knot, you were probably going to grow up to be an engineer. Slinkies taught us two important lessons. First, gravity is fun. Second, stairs were expensive to fix. We didn't call it screen time back then. We called it watching the Slinky go down the steps 47 times in a row. And somehow, it never got boring. Jacks taught us hand-eye coordination and the important life skill of not caring when your knuckles got scraped on the pavement. Marbles taught us physics, strategy, and that some kids will definitely cheat when you're not looking. But mostly, These toys taught us something simple. If it moves on its own, even just a little bit, kids will watch it forever. We were easy to please. Give us something that wound up and moved, and we were occupied for hours. Give us something that hurt just a little bit, even better. We wore our toy injuries like badges of honor. And then came plastic. Suddenly, everything was bright, shiny, and smelled faintly of chemicals that definitely weren't FDA approved yet. We had army men that melted in the sun if you left them on the driveway, which we discovered the hard way and then spent the afternoon seeing what else we could melt. For science, we had Barbie dolls with feet permanently pointed for high heels, which meant they couldn't actually stand up without support, which somehow didn't stop us from giving her a career as a doctor, astronaut, teacher, and part-time spy, all before noon. We had toy guns that could probably take out a window and definitely nearly took out Tommy Miller's left eye in 3rd grade. He was fine. Eventually, every toy from the 50s could double as a weapon. Sharp edges, small parts, spring-loaded mechanisms, toxic paint. It's amazing any of us made it past 10. And somehow, we called that perfectly safe. But here's the thing about those plastic toys. They didn't just change how we played, they changed who we played with. Suddenly, every kid had the same toys, the same army men, the same dolls, the same games. But we didn't tell the same stories. That was the magic of it. The toy was just the beginning. The rest came from us. We made the voices. We made the adventures. We made it matter. And somewhere between the toxic paint and the choking hazards, we were building something important. We were learning to create worlds out of nothing, to turn hunks of colored plastic into heroes, villains, friends, and family. We didn't need them to be realistic. We had imagination to fill in the blanks. And that imagination, that was the real education. But toys were only part of the story. Games, board games, card games, games that required other humans to sit in the same room and tolerate each other for extended periods, that's where we really learned about life. Monopoly, the game that turned family love into lifelong grudges. Nothing says quality family time like bankrupting your little sister and watching her cry while you collect rent on Park Place, and then refusing to trade with you at Thanksgiving for the next 15 years. Operation taught us about surgery, stress management, and the fact that failure makes a horrible buzzing sound that haunts your dreams. Mousetrap taught us engineering, chain reactions, and disappointment. Because, let's be honest, that thing never worked right. You'd spend 45 minutes setting it up and 3 seconds watching it fail to catch the mouse. And then you'd fight about whose fault it was. That's not a game. That's early marriage training. Candyland, where we learned that life isn't fair and sometimes you're 3 spaces from winning when you draw the plumpy card and go back to start. Jenga before Jenga? It was just your mom's good china cabinet and a dangerous amount of confidence. If you never flipped a Monopoly board in rage, did you even grow up in the 70s? But here's what nobody tells you about those games. The best part wasn't the winning. It was everything else. The laughing, the arguing, the negotiating, the strategizing, learning how to lose gracefully. Well, sometimes. Those games taught us to sit still, think ahead, read people, manage frustration, and be in the same room with our siblings without killing each other. Most of the time, they taught us that sometimes you roll a 1 when you need a 6. That sometimes the person you trust will absolutely steal from the bank when you're not looking. That sometimes you lose because life isn't fair, and sometimes you lose because Tommy cheated, and sometimes you lose because you're 7 and you're playing against Dad who doesn't believe in letting kids win. Thanks for that lesson, Dad. Really built character, but mostly those games built something simple: time together. Before everyone had their own screen, their own world, their own everything. We had one game and one table and no choice but to be together. And somehow, that was enough. Here's what we didn't realize while we were playing with those old toys. They were teaching us how to live. Every time we shared a toy with a friend, we learned generosity, even when we really didn't want to. Every time we fixed something broken, we learned resilience. Every time we imagined a world that didn't exist, we learned to dream. Every time we played with others, we learned negotiation, compromise, and that sometimes you have to let your little sister be the princess even though it's your turn. Every time we lost a game, we learned that failure isn't the end, that you can lose and still laugh, that there's always next time. Nobody sat us down and said, "This is character building." We just called it playing. We learned patience by waiting our turn. We learned math by counting Monopoly money. We learned physics by building block towers and watching them fall. We learned creativity because our toys couldn't do everything, so we had to imagine the rest. We learned resourcefulness because when something broke, we couldn't just download a replacement. We had to fix it or make do. We learned to be bored, and that boredom wasn't something to fear. It was where imagination was born. And somehow, those tiny lessons built entire adults. The kid who loved building blocks became an architect. The kid who took apart every wind-up toy became an engineer. The kid who always won at strategy games became a CEO, or at least learned how to bluff in poker. Those old toys didn't talk, light up, or connect to the internet, but they did connect us to each other, to our creativity, to our own little worlds where anything was possible and the only limit was dinner time. We learned that fun wasn't something you bought and consumed. It was something you built and shared. And if you were lucky, really lucky, you had that one toy that never broke until your cousin came over. Today's toys do everything for you. They talk, they light up, they connect to apps, they update their firmware. They're smarter, safer, more educational, more interactive, and somehow less magical. Because here's what we understood back then, even if we didn't know we understood it. Boredom wasn't something to fix. It was where imagination was born. Modern toys entertain us. Old toys inspired us. We didn't need toys that did everything. We needed toys that let us do anything. So next time your grandkid complains about being bored, hand them a cardboard box and a stick. You're not punishing them. You're giving them a time machine. What was your favorite toy? Tell us below. What did you play with? What did you build? What did you break? What do you wish your grandkids could understand about how fun used to be? Leave it in the comments so we don't lose these stories.